There is one bright side of the pandemic, and that is a lot of innovation was made in the way that veterinary care is performed. You may have seen examples of that with telemedicine from your veterinarian. Today, we talk about another innovation, at-home medical testing for your dog. Hello, I'm James Jacobson, and welcome to The Long Leash. If you are a pet parent, then you are well aware of the increasing cost of veterinary care and the increasing difficulty of just getting an appointment to see your vet. Sometimes you have to wait for weeks just to get in, and then if there's something really wrong, you usually have to schedule a follow-up appointment to go over the tests and the results. Well, what if you could go to your vet with the test results already in hand? One company is making that possible. Today on the show, we are speaking with Jen Hagness. She is the CEO of a company called MySimplePetLab. They offer at-home testing for dogs and cats, and the results are delivered to both you and your veterinarian. Today, we discuss the pros and cons of this latest innovation in vet care and what the future may hold for at-home testing. Jen Hagness, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So MySimplePetLab solves a big problem that we've all had, which is picking up the dog's poop or urine and getting it into a container that you can then bring fresh to the vet or refrigerate it and all of that. Instead, you just give it to your postman, send it off to a lab, and get some results that are shared with your veterinarian. Basically, that's what you do, right?
I like how simple you make it. Yes, that's right on point.
Okay, but what if I really like carrying the poop in the car?
That would be a first for me. I don't know if I've actually gotten that feedback that people like to put the poop in their car, but at MySimplePetLab, we like to say that gone are the days of putting, poop or urine in your car and driving them to the vet.
Yeah.
That you can do those from home and or from the vet, because the vet is absolutely part of the ecosystem that we're building.
You are in the healthcare innovation space, and there are a lot of companies doing this, certainly in the human sphere and some in the pet. We've seen it with DNA, and we have seen it with, I can't think of anything else. Other than pet DNA, who else is doing something similar to this?
So microbiome is big in pet as well, which is gut health. Mm-hmm. And so those are the two leading categories in pet health wellness from home today in terms of testing. We're actually at MySimplePetLab the first from home general wellness company, which means we do general wellness tests that are just like the tests at your veterinary clinic around fecal, around urine, skin and itch, and ears, which are the most common reasons that pet parents are visiting their vet on an annual basis. So we're really wellness tests and general wellness testing.
Are those the most routine tests that one would get at a vet office?
They are. So for example, an annual dog or cat should be getting 2 fecals a year, 1 urine test a year. Mm-hmm. And if you are fortunate to have a lab with big ears that you love so much, they actually could be in clinic 3 to 4 times a year with ear infections just because they've got large ears.
Right.
So absolutely from a convenience perspective, we believe that we're building really new ways to care for pets, both from home and from clinic.
But how do I know that my dog needs that?
It's a great question. So pet owners today, as I'm sure you know, treat their pets just like parents treat their children. Very, very in tune with what's happening to them on a behavioral level, things that could be happening in their skin, their sleep, their exercise routines, and their eating patterns. And so oftentimes, if you have an ear infection, the ear will smell, mm-hmm. or there will be discharge coming out of the ear. If a pet has digestive or GI issues, they will be having diarrhea, they may be sputing, there may be frequency. Mm-hmm. So there usually are fairly common concerns that pet owners realize pretty early on in the process that we ultimately support, with our at-home test. So those pet concerns start the conversation.
Okay, and that's the reason I might bring the animal into the veterinary clinic in the first place.
Yeah.
Is this something that, when you suspect it, you want to just go ahead and order a test, or is it more prudent to talk to a veterinarian or even at least the front office first to find out if it makes sense before you order the test?
It's a really great question. So we're vet founded. So we are 100% vet founded by vets, for pets. And so our go-to-market strategy really is supporting both on the direct-to-consumer side. So if you want to go out and you're curious about data and information and results, and you want to take it into your own hands and be empowered as a pet parent, feel free to go on Amazon and buy us. We're also working with veterinary clinics, though, because veterinary clinics today, there's not enough vets to care for the pet population that we have. Most clinics are overwhelmed and they're tired. And so what we're doing in clinic is we're partnering with clinics so that prior to a vet visit, you would actually get our tests, do those tests from home, and then all of our tests are auto-shared with your veterinarian or your groomers or boarders of choice. So they get your results at the very same time you do. So they're part of the conversation and you can get to that treatment plan that you need fast.
Is that your main go-to-market strategy, is to rely on veterinary offices to suggest it before they come in for the appointment?
So we'll do about 75% of our business this year in the veterinary health space by design, and about 25% of our business will be done in retail through partnerships.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I know that when you talk about retail, you're talking about, obviously, you can order on your website, you can order on Amazon, and then you had an interesting test program with Target. Tell me about that.
We did. So we were fortunate enough to be part of Target Takeoff in 2022. So I can say that's last year now, where we were chosen out of thousands of brands to be a part of their pet cohort. So I think there were 10 to 15 brands that were chosen nationwide. It was a 6-week accelerator program, and it really allowed us to get a crash course on how retail is thinking about pet. Parents that are shopping at Target, for example, or Walmart, think about their shop for their kids and their families, and pets are part of their families. And so retailers are really coming around the pet category to offer not only food and treats is part of wellness, but they're looking for things like MySimplePetLab in the testing arena to really support your pets when they need the support most, either from home or from clinic.
Okay. But the retail component, the decision to go and think, I'm going to get this test, is not the main impetus, or at least as you kind of look to the future. It's mainly to have the veterinarians say, hey, you need this, and this is a more convenient way to do this test.
It's a really, really good question. So here's what I would say. There's 2 groups of thought today from a pet parent perspective. So we've got kind of a more mature audience that's maybe first, second, third pet owners that have been going to the same vet. Their vet is their single source of truth. And absolutely, they should go to their vets. Ultimately, these will be offered in more and more clinics as we continue to grow. And we'll be working on building better vet visits, because you'll go into that annual vet visit with results in hand so you can talk about what matters most, which is great. There's also maybe what I would say a younger demographic, maybe a more modern pet parent. And those pet parents, they really are demanding convenience. And they're not living in one place for 12 months a year. They're moving around. And they want more data. They want more empowerment. They want more control. And so there's this really interesting dichotomy of what we really focus on at MySimplePetLab, which is access to care. And so whether you're buying it in a retail setting because you're grabbing your milk and your eggs, and or you're getting it from your vet, ultimately, we believe that all pet parents deserve access to high quality care. And that's our reason for being. So I would say that there's kind of 2 sets of thought today, and I think both are probably right.
And that second group, you identified it as a younger group. Is it a younger group or a group that is more experienced with having a pet?
I would say a little bit of it is a younger demographic that's maybe more tech savvy, maybe is doing, to your point earlier, more testing from home.
Got it.
I think for pet owners that have allergies or have skin infections or have ear infections, going into clinic 3 to 5 times a year right now, it could take you 2 to 3 weeks to get into the clinic.
Right.
And so I think for those pet users, they're definitely looking for new ways to care for their pets that's both convenient for them. But think about being on vacation and on the go and your pet getting an ear infection. What do you do? So I think we're a great solution for those just-in-time needs when you're away from home and ultimately need results fast.
Okay. I know some people just smell the dog's ear and see it smells a little weird, and then determine that they'll use some sort of, over-the-counter product. But it's better to know The focus on data is interesting because I think a lot of people, I got a smartwatch, I wear a CGM sometimes, I monitor my sleep, I'm one of these health nerds. And here at Dog Podcast Network, we've identified there's a group called dog health nerds. So people who kind of like a lot of data. And that is who this is one of the subsets of the market that you're looking at.
Absolutely.
Dog health nerds or pet health nerds. You can be a cat health nerd. We're equal opportunity.
We are. And that's unique to our business. A lot of the companies that do DNA and microbiome today are not doing dog and cat. They're doing one or the other. So we're doing both today, which we're really proud of.
And you've chosen strategically not to do microbiome, right?
Yeah. So for today, we really see a gap in the market in general wellness testing.
Yeah.
There's a huge need in clinic. There's a huge need, from home, as we've talked about, to offset kind of the pure volume in clinic. And so the nice thing about the pet category, as I'm sure you know, is we know the DNA players, we know the microbiome players. They're wonderful. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't surprise me as we go forward if there's a world where we all, partner in some way and make it a bit easier for pet parents to work with one partner. I just think we're still early in from home testing versus kind of the human space.
Gosh, with a company like MyPetLab, imagine who might consolidate that.
Well, and the interesting thing about us is we actually own our own lab. We own all of the testing. Mm-hmm. We own the entire operational journey. We own the tech. And we also own our own lab, which is really, really unique. So we're not using a third-party lab to do any of our testing. We've got, our own team members who have great backgrounds in animal health, looking under the microscope every day and helping pet parents nationwide.
Yeah, I did some research and I saw your lab and your lab manager and papers they've done and posters they've done. And it's impressive. And it's certainly not a Theranos type thing. And what you're doing, these are standard tests that you are doing in-house, gold standard.
Absolutely. Everything that we do is gold standard. Absolutely. And we're using microscope. And the interesting thing is all of our results come back in two ways. We talked about those two groups. They come back in ways that you and I would understand as pet owners. Mm-hmm. So in very simple language. And they also come back in language that your vet would understand in terms of, hey, there's an ear infection. We're finding yeast. Here's the antibiotic that we can use to treat that. As they look at the actual images of the evidence-based image underneath a microscope, which is very unique. That doesn't happen today with other reference labs.
Let's talk a little bit about the economics for the dog lover, for the pet lover. What do these tests cost?
So they retail today for around $100 if you're in retail.
Okay. And how does that compare to going to your neighborhood vet and having them run one of these tests?
Yeah, so it's about 40 to 50% of a value. And I say that because usually when you go into the clinic, you're going to do a test and a visit. Mm. Markets vary by price. New York is going to be very different than maybe, Texas or somewhere else. But it's about 40 to 50% value. But
it doesn't preclude the visit. I mean, is a vet going to just take the result and then just write a prescription?
So we've sold tens of thousands of tests today with veterinarians and as also with pet parents. And what I would say is this, and not to get too kind of technical, but in states where you have a VCPR in place, which is basically where you have a vet, patient relationship, where you've seen your vet in the last 12 months, mm-hmm. They absolutely can prescribe medication with our results. So absolutely, there are times today when pet parents are using our tests and don't that time have to go into the vet. However, what might happen is they may get an RX and then go back to the vet for a recheck.
Okay.
So again, the vet is absolutely part of the ecosystem. We're not trying to disintermediate them in any way. We're really trying to provide new tools to make vet visits even better and more convenient.
Okay. So of the tests you do now, the fecal, the urine, you're doing urine now or not yet?
We'll be launching urine this year. So we don't do urine yet, but we do skin and itch, ears, and fecal. Yeah.
Okay. Of the 3 tests you do right now, and they come back positive,
yep.
Is the solution in almost all of those cases a prescription, like an antibiotic or heartworm medicine or something like that?
If it's positive, if we find something, usually a medication would be associated. Mm-hmm. But if it's not, if we don't find an actual parasite or we don't find an abnormality, then there could be over-the-counter solutions, like an ear flush or a wipe or whatever it may be to support kind of with, whatever those pet concerns are. So I would say yes, but not always the case where we find something.
Okay. And then as you look to the future, other than the urine test, which is coming out this year, what other tests are maybe on the horizon?
So the interesting thing about our business today is we're a lab within a lab. So basically, all of the baseline tests that we offer today, that's kind of the first line. But we do PCR testing, we do lots of upgrades, we could do fecal egg counts. And so there's a lot of testing that once the results come in, if we find something that we can go a little bit deeper, which we do.
So you retain the sample. And so if you have test positive, give an example of, say, with one of the fecal tests where they would go further.
Right. So you could test positive for worms or giardia, and we could do a PCR to find out exactly what's going on, or a fecal egg count to find out, how many eggs and kind of at what phase they're in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of ways that ultimately we can really help to figure out what to prescribe and what the right treatment would be when you're working with your veterinarian. 2023 is going to be interesting for us because we've already talked a little bit about the fact that we play in animal health and we play in retail. It's really unique, really exciting. We're first to market. And in 2023, we're going to be launching a new assortment that's adjacent to our test that supports pet parents with these common concerns. And so I'd love to come back later this year and share more with you about what that's going to be.
There's a tease.
But we're going to be a really, really great alternative for routine pet care across the categories we work in, both in what we're saying test today and then in the future care.
So in many ways, you're addressing an issue that we've talked about a lot on various shows here on Dog Podcast Network, which is the dearth of readily available veterinary care. And then obviously we've seen an increased interest in telemedicine, and then now that's kind of being clawed back, and the FDA is doing all sorts of things, and it gets super complicated. But you see what you're doing as an adjunct to that, and you're going to figure out in this 2023 and how to really leverage the changing ecosphere.
I think it really comes down to choice. Mm-hmm. If I'm a veterinarian and someone calls into the clinic, I have the choice to say, I'm going to drop ship you a test. It'll be at your house tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Your results will be ready shortly. And then we'll decide if you need to come in for a vet visit. Mm-hmm. I think it's choice from a pet parent perspective. I live in California, but I'm vacationing in New York and my pet has a challenge. What do? I can go grab a test or have one drop ship from Amazon, still interact with my veterinarian when those results are ready. But ultimately, it gives me more choice. It gives me more control. And I think choice and control are two things within the pet category that we take very seriously. As an animal health company, if we can't make pet ownership easy, both for veterinarians and pet parents, people are not going to continue to, adopt pets. They're not going to continue to add pets to their household. So it's our job to really make it simple. Pet ownership should be simple. Pet care should be simple.
We've talked a little bit about the economics from a consumer, from a pet lover's perspective. What are the economics for a veterinarian? What kind of reception are you getting both on the positive and the negative side about what you're doing?
So we're new to the market. We do things very, very different than the big players. Big players are wonderful, so I won't name them and we know them well. But from a margin perspective or an economics perspective, we're actually just a little bit more. So we're not looking at being double the price of what one of the big players or one of the incumbents is doing today. We've actually figured out a way to, on the cost side, be slightly more. But what we save on the operational side, just think about it. People don't have to get fecal samples. They don't have to get ear samples. They don't have to go to the back room and actually run the cytology. So there's a lot of efficiency in clinic that we really build for clinics that actually saves them money and time and resources to allow them to have more vet visits, see more pets, and ultimately, just support more animals on an annual basis.
So the veterinarians, from a financial perspective, are able to spend more time practicing medicine versus running lab tests.
Exactly. And still being a profit center. So we absolutely are still a profit center for veterinarians. Absolutely. Okay. But we build more efficiency. And if you ask any veterinarian today, they're going to say they want to be able to see as many pets as they possibly can. And we are allowing them to do that. We're allowing them to see more pets on an annual basis.
Okay, so let's pull back a little bit further on the economics of this. You are a venture-backed company. How much have you raised so far?
It's a good question. So we just closed on our Series A, which has been wonderful, which was a $5 million round. Okay. Really, really excited about that. That was with Companion Fund.
And Companion Fund is from Mars.
That's correct, yes. And so just closed that. And then 2 of our seed investors were also involved in this last round, which is great.
Okay. So are you set? Are you looking for a B round? Where are you headed?
That's a really good question. We have created a really great model for the next 18 months. We're in a fantastic position, and we're going to really partner with great companies that you'll see coming to life in the next couple of months. Like I said, 75% in animal health, to really support the vet community, 25% in retail. So I think we're in a great position right now with what we've got. I would never say never, but I think for right now, our Series A is going to give us the leeway that we need to build out our lab in a little bit larger space, expand our team, and grow our tech.
Is telemedicine on the horizon for you?
We partner with telemedicine today. And I think the reality is we talked a little bit about convenience and choice. And, we see the future relative to in-clinic and telemedicine being similar, that it's going to be the choice if I want to do a virtual visit or if I want to go in clinic, or my clinic's choice to tell me what maybe I should do given what's happening. Mm-hmm. I think over the next couple of years, we're going to really see those models converging more than we have in the last couple. And so I think choice, especially with the younger demographic, is going to continue to be really, really important as they become more bi-coastal, move around more, want more convenience. And ultimately, the care team around your pet used to be just your vet. And the vet is still such an important part of who cares for your pet. But we're seeing groomers and boarders and all these other amazing services that are seeing your pet just as much, if not more. And so the nice thing about our service is you can share your results with all of those care teams as part of our auto share feature, which really allows your care team to be kind of front and center on what's happening with your pet when you need them the most. So I think there'll be much more of a convergence between physical and virtual as we go forward, really to offer pet parents and veterinarians choice.
That is fascinating. I want to take a quick break here, but when we come back, Jen, I'd like to talk a little bit about your background, because you don't come from the veterinary space. And I think your perspective is really interesting, and what you do bring to this. We'll be right back.
And now, a message from your dog.
Every day with you is like a day at the beach. And I want as many beach days as possible. I want to run and sniff and find a good stick to carry. I want to roll in the grass and warm my belly in the sun. I want to walk with you, run with you, sleep with you, eat with you. And when I eat with you, I want Everpup. The green, grassy beef liver spiked smell wakes my senses. You may not realize this, but it tastes like homemade gravy, especially when you wet it. It infuses any food you give me with health and life and vibrancy. I can feel it. Everpup traveling to every cell in my body, nourishing each one. Does it roll back time? Of course not. Not really. But it helps me feel like I'm on top of the world. I'm so glad you're giving it to me every day. Because every day I'm so glad to be with you. I'm so grateful to be your dog. And for the Everpup you give me.
So now that you know what your dog wants, get Everpup, the ultimate dog supplement. Everpup is available in select pet shops and on Amazon. But to get the best price possible, join the Everpup Club at everpupclub.com, where you'll get your first jar for just $8 with free shipping anywhere in the U.S. Go to everpupclub.com and use the discount code DPN. That is everpupclub.com. Everpup every day.
We're back with Jen Hagness. Jen, we talked a lot about, what MyPetLab does, but let's talk a little bit about MySimplePetLab, because it's not just a pet lab, it is a simple one. But let's talk a little bit about you as the CEO. You're working with veterinarians, vet laboratory people, but you don't come from the vet space or even the medical space.
I don't. So I've spent the last 2 decades really growing and scaling retail brands. So I've worked across beauty and personal care and food and beverage. I actually have worked on some pet products, but nothing in the animal health quite like this. And interestingly enough, my passion really comes in working with companies and founders and brands that make the world better, make life better. I'm so fortunate that I met Dr. Dennis Schmiel and Dr. Nancy Willerton, who are the 2 co-founders of MySimplePetLab. And the interesting thing in the pet category is, to be totally honest, what we do is not simple. It's highly technical. There's a lot of process. There's a lot of science that goes into what we do. But as pet parents, you want your pet care to be really accessible and easy to understand. And so part of this, great kind of dichotomy that we have between my background of being really curious about consumers, I often say that I love that they say one thing on Monday and say something completely different on Friday, and I get energized by that. So I come from a very let's make it relatable, let's make it approachable, let's make it simple. Dennis and Nancy, having, decades in animal health, are very science-based, care so much, as we all do, for the vet clinics and the veterinarians in this industry. And obviously all of the pets that we care for. And so I really think the future of animal health is going to have more of this. How do you consumerize it, make it approachable and simple, but still make sure that it delivers on the authenticity and credibility that you need to run, a lab. So I'm having so much fun. I've learned so much. The animal health community has been open arms and just wonderful to work with. It's a small group.
What is that like? Because, again, coming from consumer, and you worked at Caribou Coffee for a while, and a variety of different very, consumer-y brands, to move to animal health. How has that been personally?
It's been really rewarding. I love to learn new things. And I think making testing simple, that's what we do every day, and that's what we're excited about, but it's not simple. And so I like the complexity that we all come to a table every day or a computer every day with different backgrounds. I love that we're coming to the table every day to say, we want animal health to be better and simple. And, so many of the pet parents that we work with send us notes and say, thank you. You helped me figure out what was going on with my pet when I couldn't figure it out or I couldn't get into the vet clinic. And I can't think of anything worse as a pet owner or a pet parent than not being able to help my pet when they're showing signs of concern. I can't think of anything worse than having a veterinary clinic that's overwhelmed, and we know that they all are. So I think it's been really, really fascinating to come to work every day with wonderful people and be curious, because very similar to the other retail categories I've worked in, what they say on Monday is maybe not what they want on Friday. And, so far we've been really able to adapt and evolve our business model and our offering in a way that, really meets pet parents where they are in their pet wellness journey. And that's been really, really fun.
Give me an example of that dichotomy where people what they say on Monday is not what they say on Friday. What's an example of that? Maybe from a consumer products company, and then also from what you're doing now.
That's a really good question. So pet parents, what do they say on a Monday different than a Friday? Well, they all agree they want it simple, which is great. But one of the things with our tests that used to be true is we used to have levels. So we used to have 3 levels of tests. Very normal, very standard in the vet clinic. We did a bunch of consumer research. And in all of our research, we talked to both veterinarians and pet parents. So we're constantly getting both of that feedback, and came to find out that 3 levels was just too complicated. So there's one base test today that you buy from us. And ultimately behind the scenes then through our technology, you can upgrade and get, level 2 or level 3 or additional tests. So that's one thing I would say in animal health, but simplicity is still kind of at the core of everything that they want. And I guess on the consumer side, I lived through the coffee category when it went from hot to cold. And so, I did. So when I started, the category was, 75% hot coffee, 25%, non-coffee hot. And now, living in the Midwest and seeing, someone with their Canada Goose jacket, -5 degree weather with flip-flops on and nice coffee is not abnormal at all. And, people that started, with Starbucks and Caribou back in the day would have said that would never have been the case, that hot coffee was always the way. So pet parents are similar. They're adapting, they're thoughtful, they're smart, they're savvy, and they're looking for new ways to make pet health simple and accessible.
So how do you cultivate your spidey senses to be able to discern, if what they say on Monday is going to be different than what they say on Friday, and plan for Saturday?
I come to work every day and I don't think I'm an expert.
Okay.
I come to work every day and I sit around the table and I try to listen as much as I possibly can. We run tons of focus groups constantly, really scrappy ones, talking to veterinarians, vet students, big clinics, small clinics, big consumer companies, startup consumer companies. We're constantly getting feedback. And that really helps us, one, I think, make sure that we're not talking to ourselves. Because a lot of companies at this stage, you got to kind of stay focused, but you still have to listen to the noise. But also really make sure that we're evolving and hearing what pet parents are saying, because even in the last 3 years with COVID, those journeys are changing and they're continuing to evolve, to your point, between telemedicine and virtual medicine and virtual care and physical care to DNA testing to microbiome. There's so many new things hitting the market. And so we have to be agile, which is why we're playing in multiple categories across animal health and retail. Both are posed to, kind of communicate and work with different consumer groups. And also, this year launching test and care products. Very, very unique in the market to be doing both. Very, very excited about it.
And this is your first gig as a CEO, yeah?
It is my first time as a CEO, yes.
How has the ride been coming from, different things in the marketing world and kind of Smarty was sort of like looking at prospective companies and seeing potential? How has that been for you to be the person in charge?
It's been fun. I definitely have my days, just like everyone else. I would be lying if I said differently.
It's not all bonbons and.
It's not, but team is so important, and I'm so lucky that the team at MySimplePetLab cares so incredibly much, which is so true in the pet category in general. People just they care so much about the larger ecosystem. And I'm learning something new every single day. I like the balance of gut instinct with data. And I think in my first year and a half or so, that's the big thing is you got to use gut to get you halfway there. You got to use data to fill in. You got to know when to pivot. And also, I think, going through the fundraise process, you have to know your audience. So it's been really fun. And I'm excited for the next couple of years. And I'm hopeful that this is not my first or my last CEO role.
Well, Jen Hagness, thank you so much. We will follow up and make sure that you tell us whatever is happening with the new announcements this year. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, that is all the time we have for on today's show. If you'd like to learn more about MySimplePetLab, you can find the link to their site in today's show notes. There you can also find other resources and the links to all of our previous episodes of The Long Leash. You can also find those on our website at longleashshow.com. If you enjoyed today's program, please subscribe in your favorite podcast app. And we are also on YouTube. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm James Jacobson. On behalf of all of us here at Dog Podcast Network, I'd like to wish you and your dog a very warm aloha.